Can anybody see a disadvantage? Apart from, okay, we'll start with disadvantages, it takes time to do it. Other disadvantages of just having a personal reflection as a method of evaluating your teaching.
Is it objective? Yes.
Who was that?
You cannot be objective.
You can't be objective, yeah.
Or it can hurt if you are objective. Emotional.
You come weeping out of the room. Oh. Yeah.
You can change for your mood.
Yes. So some days you can go into it and be very positive about it, and then other days you look at the same thing and
I think that it helps you improve your teaching, or at least recognize your fallibilities, because, for example, I've noticed that if I go into a class stressed out or with something on my mind that's bothering me, that certainly affects the quality of my teaching.
Yeah.
So once I discover that, what I've tried to do is to close myself off to all communication before class time.
Yes.
I'm not reading my emails, I'm not checking my telephone messages until I'm out of my class, until the class has gotten out of the way.
Yeah, because you can just be very distracted, by things,
And students pick up on that very easily. And then their energy goes down too.
And I think there's some really interesting points. I think personal reflection is really, it is vital to take a bit of time and space to think about what you've done. But I think, as you said there, it can't just be done in this bubble, because it has to have inputs from other data sources, if you like, to inform the reflection. Otherwise, you just go round and round in circles. You don't bring any new ideas into the mix. Okay, the next slide, I think. Oh, right, we've done that question. So we did this yesterday. I'll just pick up a few of these that we didn't do. So who carries out the evaluation? So we've talked already, you've already mentioned that the student evaluation can be informal or formal. Those conversations after class, who understood this? Hands up at the end, using Kahoot to get some understanding. That's really student feedback, You can put the questions in at the end. One to check understanding, one to check, whether they're doing the activity or not. In class, I think, again, you're in the moment. I think online and at the end of the semester when they're doing 6 different courses, I don't think is a very effective way, but I'm not sure, I haven't looked at the evidence for that. My sort of gut feeling about it is that they just get through them all as quickly as possible. Peer observation, we've talked about that. Sometimes it can be from the school or the department, it can be this external kind of process, or it could be as part of a PCAP like this, or it could be as part of your action learning groups, your action learning sets. So you might do a number of different people within that group, which in some ways kind of the balance of having it done with a buddy, kind of where you're really close and you don't feel able to criticise. But if you're doing it within an action learning group, so, there's lots of cross ways of so I observe you and you observe them and they observe somebody else. I don't think it's quite as intimate as that kind of, I don't really feel like giving you negative feedback, because the atmosphere in the action learning group is much more constructive. Self-evaluation, we've obviously been doing quite a few reflective exercises as part of the PCAP and as part of your fellowship activities, but it should be part of your ongoing development activity. You're all, professionals, you've all got ambitions, and, you need to take time out to reflect on where you want to go with your career, and I think we can get a little bit on a treadmill without kind of looking up and thinking, oh, actually, am I still heading the direction that I thought I was 2 or 3 years ago, or am I just... Morning.
Sorry.
It's okay. Observation by mentor or coach. So the difference between the sort of peer observation and having a mentor or a coach is really the focus. So the mentor is there for you, and as is the coach, but a mentor is focused on your needs and your objectives. So if I was mentoring you and you say, look, this is what I'm trying to do, can you come and observe my class and give me some feedback? You're identifying what your needs are, and I'm coming in to meet your needs. Okay. In the UK now, sort of academic coaches are becoming more and more popular. So a head of department might bring in, I've done coaching for faculty teams and school teams, where the dean has brought me in to coach a number of staff in the faculty, and it's getting them to meet the department's objectives. Okay, so the department has set new objectives that they want, new constructive learning, and then they bring me in as a coach to coach individuals within that school to get them to achieve the department's goal. So it's less about them achieving their own goals and more about them achieving the department's goals. But you still get that individual, and it's you know, if you're coaching sort of properly, it's still about you, but it's a little bit more about, I would work with you to see how you can move forward. Okay. And then external evaluation. Years ago, when I first started teaching, you were observed. Your department was observed like by the government, the same as they do in primary school and secondary school. You'd get an inspector coming in from, it would actually be from another university, and they would look at all of your teaching materials, and they would come and observe a certain number of classes.
And should we collect all the questions and the exams for your? You know, we have a.
Yes. Yes.
Academic system.
Yeah.
But I think they don't observe.
No. They They got rid of it in the UK as well because it was just so time consuming, you know. It's just, and really you're just getting a snapshot, you know. And again, everybody that, you know the inspectors are coming in and everybody does their Sunday best lecture, you know. And, you know, it could have nothing to do with the subject or whatever, you know, we're just going to have this great lecture. So it wasn't really effective at measuring what it was supposed to measure. And then external examiner processes I've already talked about. So there's lots of different people evaluating what we're doing, which kind of leads us to this idea of this kind of 360 evaluation. You know, we can get information from lots of different sources, which can inform our kind of critical and personal reflection. We can get the student feedback, observation by mentor or coach, the peer observation, and you can sort of balance in your mind how valid each of those are. And then some external evaluation. So you might, you know, compare your teaching with somebody from another institution, or you might have somebody coming in. And, you know, if you start to present your scholarship activities as well. So I would love by the end of this for you guys to think, right, actually I'm doing something really good and I kind of want to share that. I want to take that to a learning and teaching conference. I know many of you go to discipline conferences and professional practice conferences, but, you know, you might want to think about sharing that in a scholarship conference. So the idea of 360 evaluation is how do we get all of that information together and really, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, you know, and we can just pick the pieces that we like, you know, which is the big danger. I used to go to, when I worked at one institution, there was a Pilates class like twice a week, which I used to go to. So it was an hour class. And it was great, I absolutely loved it. But I'd been going it for about 3 or 4 years, and I thought, okay, I don't need to go to that anymore. You know, I know all the exercises, I know what I'm doing. And then within sort of 6 months to a year, you finally realise that when you're doing it on your own, the class only takes like 20 minutes, you know, rather than an hour. And you only do all the exercises you like, and you ignore all the bits that needed work, you know. And I think it's the same with the 360 evaluation. You work on the things that you like doing, and you get better and better at those. But the things that you're not good at, you just kind of push to one side and think, oh well, I can't get any better at that one. I'm not going to be able to do that, so I'll not even practice it. So I think it's important when you're thinking about 360 evaluation, particularly if you're doing it on your own, is to give relevant weight. I'm not saying equal weight to all of these because, you know, some deserve more weight, some have more validity, but making sure that you're giving them the weight they deserve and there's a valid reason for giving them that weight. So you might sort of dismiss external evaluation because you're thinking, well, actually, they don't really know what I'm doing in my classroom. You know, really, they're just looking at some of the outputs and they're not measuring what I'm doing. But you might be kind of lying to yourself in that. That's all I'm saying. Okay, it's time that we did. So these are just sort of some questions for you to be thinking about to take forward. If you're going to be reflecting, if you're going to do this 360-degree approach, you need to think, you know, what is it that you're actually trying to achieve? Are you, you know, at the moment you might just be focusing on fellowship. In a couple of years' time, you might be thinking about promotion. You might be just thinking about having your students having better outcomes. So what is it actually you're trying to achieve? And then what instruments are you using? You know, are they effective at measuring that, and are they valid? Okay. So we can think about all those different instruments, different ways of measuring your practice. And you also need to think about what works for you when you're doing kind of self-reflection. Okay, so once you've gathered up all of this information, you're getting all this information from different sources, and you start to do this internal reflection. It has to be critical. So we have to have that thing on the right. A critical reflection about what what is all this data telling you about your practice. So it has this kind of past focus, but critical thinking, which is the thing that we're always encouraging our students to do, which we perhaps don't do quite so much ourselves, is a little bit more in the moment. Active interpretation of your practice. So it's that kind of in some ways it's about mindfulness, kind of looking at the impact of what you're doing on the people in the room. And having that kind of awareness very much in the moment. I'm not going to go through that. That's going to be in the obviously it's in the slide pack and the thing. But thinking about reflective and non-reflective action, and thinking about which one of those paths you're going down to actually get to critical reflection. Transformational learning. We've spoken about this. We spoke about it in terms of what the purpose of the university is. What's the difference between somebody who comes here at 18 and spends 4 years here, and somebody at 18 who just goes out to work. What is the transformational experience of coming to university? What is the difference between those two people when they get to 22? That actually made it worth them investing time and energy coming here. So I usually put pictures of sport people here. Mo Farah's just gone from being, he's in the middle of going from being a very successful 5K and 10K runner with lots of world championships to wanting to run the marathon. So he, being very successful in one field, he now needs to transform his approach to be, hopefully successful in another field. So how do we go around that transformational process? And it's about reviewing your past experiences and your past assumptions. And I think sports people are always very, very good at this. They are always kind of reflecting and critiquing based on the data and thinking about what they need to do differently. They analyse everything down to, well, the common phrase now is marginal gains. What are those minute things that improve your practice? Now, we don't have the time or energy or a fleet of coaches that help us do that, so we need to think about what are the things that are going to transform the way that we're going to learn. Okay, right, activity time. How much of your time is spent preparing for an activity? So you can just think about preparing for a class, actually doing the activity, and then reviewing the activity. So just draw a circle, and you can sort of think about, the size of thing that you're thinking about is up to you. You can think about one lesson, or you can think about a whole module. You can think about a whole course. But probably the smaller it's better to kind of focus it on your mind. So how much of your time, out of that 360 degrees of the circle, how much time do you spend preparing, actually doing, and then reviewing it afterwards, okay? So draw a circle, and I think I'm kind of reluctant to put my circle up here because I'm going to try and change it, but my circle is 60, 60, 60, which is probably not very reflective of anybody's experiences, but be honest with yourselves. There's no point lying in your self-reflection.